Hey, this is Liz, and you're listening to the SouthCack Syndicate Podcast.
That's right.
Episode 14.
Man, we're knocking them out, dude.
We are. This is actually a back-to-back one, but
Well, it won't be for the listeners.
it won't be for you guys. You'll hear it next Thursday. No, next Friday. So episode 14 is going back in time a little bit. Episode 2, we talked about media, digital media, compared it to traditional media.
Yep.
Why is radio still relevant when I can pick a target on Facebook?
Yep.
Why is print newspaper still relevant? It's what my dad and grandfather used to read every morning.
As soon as we finished that podcast, we looked at each other and said, all right, now we need to get somebody in here that knows that side of it and have them on.
Yeah.
And so here we are.
So today we have, with the Seneca Journal and others, Mr. Hal Welch. Welcome to the podcast, Hal.
Well, thank you for having me.
So Hal's been in the print media world for how many years?
22.
Okay, so
year.
All with the Journal?
No, I've been with the Journal here with Evans Group for 12 years. Moved up here in 2010 right after the recession. I started in Daytona Beach,
Okay.
the Daytona Beach News Journal. Well, actually 2001, so it's 21 and a half.
Right. Yeah, I was telling on one of the podcasts we had, one of my first side hustles was a paperboy.
yeah,
And
doing
like-
a paper out in Cali.
Yeah. And I didn't realize that it's your own business. Like I would buy the papers from the
Very much.
paper, they would charge me for the papers, and then I charged my customers. It wasn't like they were just paying me a regular rate to go deliver these papers. Like it was.
Does it still work that way?
No, we don't do it that way anymore. There are probably some papers that do, but you run the risk of losing carriers and losing.
Well, this was the San Jose Mercury News, so it was a big publication.
paper.
Yeah, big paper. So I
Is
mean,
that like the Atlanta Journal?
I don't know, man. I know the San Jose Mercury News is like was. I don't know what it is now, but it was at the time a huge paper.
One of the larger.
I would say. I mean, it's right there in Silicon Valley. It's
I would say it's pretty similar.
Yeah. So you're not just Seneca Journal, right? It's you're in Montana with
Wyoming.
or Wyoming with a radio group that Edwards owns. Can you give us a bubble of what you're kind of overseeing and dealing with on a basis?
Sure. So we're in 4 states. We're in Georgia, Michigan, Wyoming, and South Carolina. South Carolina's the home office. It's our largest operation here in Seneca. In Wyoming, we've had a group of 5 radio stations for 25 years. And just this past year, in fact, January 1st, we took over the local newspaper there.
how big? How big are those radio stations? Like a
They're all-
WGOG or like a big like
92.5 WESC.
They're all unrated, so it's really hard to answer that.
Right, gotcha.
But in terms of watt, it's just kind of one of the things you look at. So WGOG, I think, is in the 7,000 watt range.
Okay.
And these guys out there are 20 to 25,000 watts.
okay, so it's a good bit more reach, I guess.
Well, not by population, I wouldn't
Right.
imagine,
It's just
right?
it's just reach by.
Well, but we get more prairie dogs.
Do they count?
So, but no, see, the dynamics are very different in Wyoming versus here. So WGOG may have their towers up on a mountain beaming down into the valley, and radio's line of sight. So,
Right.
for 6,500 watts here,
You can go a long ways.
further than you can in Wyoming.
Yeah, you
And,
just get the valley out there, I guess.
well, you get a straight shot until you hit, a
Right.
13,000 foot uprising. And then
Gotcha.
your signal's over. So
So Montana,
Wyoming,
I'm sorry, Wyoming,
You stuck on
Georgia,
Montana.
South Carolina. What was the
Michigan.
Michigan and
Yeah.
radio station in Michigan?
Yeah, so we've got we got 5 in Michigan as well, and then 3 newspapers in Michigan. The newspaper operation here, and their newspaper over in Fayetteville, Georgia.
That's a lot of media.
Yeah.
This is going to be good because this will tie in episode 2
Yeah,
pretty
yeah.
good. And we always said,
Well, one of the takeaways I'm already getting, and I kind of knew this already, but it kind of brings it home, is that most of these publications are not just owned by individuals, right? Like I know over in Greenville, like 93.7, 98.1, a lot of those radio stations are all owned by the same company. I don't know if it's Cox or who owns that, but they're all housed in the same building basically. And now, you kind of saying that about papers and radio stations, it kind of makes sense that that's probably how the ones that know how to do it just go in, buy them up, kind of make their own little collection.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Well, we talked about, man, it'd be cool to own a radio station. I wonder if we can buy WGOG. I know you don't own it. Can we buy WGOG? Does an outfit like Jared and Kyle have the opportunity to buy from a media group one of your radio stations?
Not really comfortable speculating about a competitor, but if you get a hold of it,
Might can work a deal.
give me a call. No, they do a great job over there. Brandon and the guys, they do a great job there. They do a great job over at the lake.
Me and Jerry would probably run it in the ground. So
Yeah, we'd destroy it around here locally.
Well, we talked about either Hal or Brandon Kessler or both have to come in, right? So Hal's the first opportunity we've had to be able to talk about this, because most of our listeners, and Jared and Kyle, both of us, and we market our own businesses on social media. It's not very often I call Hal and say, hey, what's an 8x10 cost these days? And the only reason when I opened up the outdoor store here on Main Street, Brandon Kessler came to me and says, you ever thought about advertising on radio? And that's how we met. And he's like, this is my rates, and this is my reach, and it's, fairly inexpensive
my demo.
to do. Yeah.
So do you guys know your demographic pretty well with the paper?
Yeah.
Do you guys
we have to.
You guys get age and sex and...
Well, it's probably the most unique part about being in newspaper versus the other mediums is these people call us or write us or email us or, walk in the front door and they say, I want this product. Here's a check.
Right.
And so we know your address. We don't ask for your age, but we can see you drove in a BMW and you're snow white haired. So the old demographics are, when you study newspapers and even going back through school, it's really not any different today. That's what's kind of, we can get into the mistakes that the newspaper industry has made across the country later. But that's really what's kind of mesmerizing is the demographic hasn't changed. The more you graduate from about 35 years old to 40 to 45 to 50, and the more socially and culturally and financially aware you become,
you want to do self-education,
the more you start to gravitate toward being a newspaper reader.
Gotcha.
Interesting.
I can see that.
So with every newspaper subscription per household, do they automatically get the option to sign up and read it digitally, or is that a separate subscription?
No, they get that for us. And that's one of the huge mistakes. Again, whenever you guys are ready, we'll get into it. But that's one of the huge mistakes that some of the larger companies have made, was they were charging $150, $200, $250. I think Greenville's charging $600 for an annual subscription, but you're giving the entire newspaper away on your website for free.
Right. So you're driving away
what sort of business model is this?
Yeah.
Guys? What are you trying to do? The payroll in my newsroom alone in Seneca is over $50,000 a month.
Yeah. That's a lot. That's a lot.
Just payroll or overhead?
No,
just payroll. So
how are you going to give that away for free?
Yeah.
It's how long did you think that plane was going to stay in the air, guys?
The only way I could justify that, and this is probably not what they're doing, but if they need, if they're looking to exit and they need to show tons of readers, then I could see something like that.
they ain't looking to exit.
Well, I'm just saying, like he says, it doesn't make sense.
Would you offer a paperless subscription? Could somebody do that without getting a paper thrown in the driveway?
You can.
With the journal?
Mm-hmm. You can. We have, I don't know, it's probably about 600 people that do that.
Okay.
And so it's like an email or like a RSS feed or something?
Yeah, or you can log in. You can log in today and look. You can actually, it's our most viewed page on our web. Believe it or not, our most viewed page on all of our websites across the country is what we call our full view. So it's the actual
where you flip the
itself.
page. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You log in, it goes into full screen, and you log through and just flip the pages.
Yeah. I used to look at magazines like that.
That gets read. The same exact article gets read 10-1 over just actually clicking the link on the page.
When I click to turn the page, I wish that it would take it back to a full view, because if I'm zoomed in on and I'm looking at it on my phone, if on my laptop, I'm sure it's a whole different experience. But on my mobile device, when I zoom in and look at this corner article I'm reading, it says continued on page A5. I flip the page and I'm looking at it like just
it's an obituary or something.
Yeah, and I'm like, I got to zoom back out. And when I zoom back out, sometimes I flip another page. I'm like, and I get back to where I need. But that's technology. That's where we're at. So I remember you saying years ago, it's like, newspapers not dead yet, because a lot of people, and you touched on this earlier, you have memories of being at the kitchen table every morning. You're waking up.
Yeah.
Your dad's already been outside, done the chores, and came in. He's got a newspaper in his hand. So some of the older generations like, oh,
Yeah.
let's do that. That's what you're supposed to do when you grow up. But now
Read the newspaper.
Now it's more self-education. And if you love it, hate it, that's how you're going to get the news that's out there.
I consider myself an educational reader. I just don't look for that education in the paper. I mean, I could. I tend to buy the books that I feel like I want to read. And I think if I had a paper, it would probably be more something around the market. So it'd be like something, what's the
Wall Street Journal.
Yeah, it'd probably be something like that, I would think. Which is a crazy thing that's distributed nationally. Mm-hmm. So they have multiple print locations. How does that work?
Yeah, they have hubs. Now I'm not real sure what they're doing currently because they used to. One of their hubs was in the Atlanta Journal office, and the Atlanta Journal has moved away from they've outsourced their printing now to another provider. So I'm not real sure where they're printing now, but they have hubs all over the country, and so they get printed there, probably in Columbia. I'm just guessing.
And then they just distribute that locally.
Yeah. Cool.
Now, y'all also print your own papers. You don't sub that out to somebody else. Your print shop is out on Highway 11.
Yep. Yeah, you've been out there.
Yep.
We are the largest. Newspaper printing is referred to as offset printing because it's a bit of a process, and most folks don't realize that printer is about 160 feet long. It's massive, and as far as I know, outside of Knoxville, Tennessee, probably has us beat. But outside of Knoxville, Edwards Printing on Highway 11 is the largest offset printer in Georgia, Tennessee, North Carolina, and South Carolina that you could drive to
Right.
within the next 3 or 4 hours.
Now, do you guys print for other publications as well?
Yeah, we print.
Subcontract.
We print currently 47 mastheads per month.
Okay.
It's crazy. So went by there. If you hadn't been, we need to go one day.
Where's it at?
Right across the street from Lift Tech. It's a little diagonal from Lift Tech.
Okay.
Right past U.S. Engine Valve.
Yeah.
But the machines, I mean, as you can imagine, have to come in on tractor trailers.
Yeah.
They're just massive.
Paper goes through in a big roll.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the paper pallets are just like ceiling high. And there's this guy that's got ink all over him just going, what's up? It just rolls. But having somebody like Hal or one of the managers there walk you through and just this is how it starts.
Yeah.
Is very interesting.
Field trip.
One of the rooms I walked into had all these papers in it, and you could get the paper in Russia, Chinese. What other languages are you printing in?
Gosh, a couple of Arabics, Chinese, Korean.
So do you guys have like local
Some of their sub work. So these papers, to my understanding, got shipped to like Atlanta.
Yeah, primarily Atlanta. 90% of that's going to go.
I was just wondering how you verified the translation is correct.
We don't.
You just hope that it's.
There's a story that predated me 15, 20 years ago here when the FBI showed up wanted to find out about an Arabic newspaper that was being printed here. But no, we have no ability to.
Yeah.
There's no one here that reads Russian. The trick about publishers is your publication. It's your legal responsibility.
Right.
It's not mine. It's not the gas station you bought it at. It's your legal responsibility. And
Whoever writes it.
that's why folks on my side of this argument for the last decade have said, social media, Facebooks and Instagrams, they need to be treated like publishers.
Yeah.
If you wrote a letter to the editor and you completely just slandered the crap out of somebody, well, that person can sue me.
Yeah.
Because I didn't vet it, I didn't verify it, and I published it.
I think if they had
Insane.
yeah. I think if they held the people who they're actually posting the stuff on social media more accountable, you'd have a lot less junk.
But it has to start with the publisher. See, because it comes into my office. And my guys take a look at it and go, ooh, man, I can't print that. And they kick it back. And we offer them the chance to change it. Hey, if you'll take that line out or don't say that.
But like a Twitter or like a Facebook, how would they do that? Because they don't have the manpower to like go through everything.
I wish I had $200 million a month in income, I could answer that question.
Yeah.
I could put enough people in
To figure it out.
to vet that process.
See, I feel like if you basically held people legally responsible for what they put on those platforms, I'm talking about the person.
Mm-hmm.
You know, me, like if I posted something on my Facebook that was slanderous or whatever, you know, that I could be held, and I guess I could be held legally responsible for it, but I think more people should be.
That
you-
veil is beginning to be pierced. There was a
Yeah.
lawsuit last year sometime in North Carolina. I want to say Fayetteville, North Carolina. Excuse me. I don't want to repeat it because there was some things that went on, but a lady had posted something about a former coworker, and that former coworker ended up being fired, and it was just a big mess. And so she sued Facebook and the other lady and won $500,000, and won $500,000 from Facebook and $500,000 from the other individual. So as those things start to happen,
Yeah.
we sort of like seeing that because there's so much garbage that goes
Yeah.
online
Yeah,
that has no filter.
Well, newspapers used to be the trusted source. Now you can just make up lies on social media.
Yeah.
Right. But I'll go ahead and say this. If I was going to sue Facebook for anything, $500,000 is not where I would start. I'm just
No.
throwing
We're going
that
to start
out
at
there.
$500 million.
I mean,
Well, you know what happened with that? It hit some lawyer's desk down there, and they just said, they didn't even look at it.
here's a check for $500,000.
Like
Maybe make it
$500,000,
go
they
away.
signed off on that and
Yeah.
said,
Make
move on to
that
the
go
next
away.
one.
So, can we talk about geofencing at all?
Fire away. What do you want to talk about?
So more than paper, more than radio, you're also into geofencing and things like that to attract new businesses that way. Can you explain for those who don't know what geofencing is,
Yeah, a lot of people don't even know it exists.
how that works, and how you guys are utilizing it yourselves?
Okay. Well, they know it exists. In fact, they're probably irritated as all get out about it, but they just don't realize who's doing it. Mm-hmm. So I don't know how you want to break this down. There's any number of different ways to do it. There's geofencing and geotargeting, and there's programmatic and searching. But if you're dealing with just geofencing, so say a local furniture store says, "I'm the best recliner dealer in the upstate," and they want to geofence the other furniture stores who also sell recliners.
Right. As soon as you walk within that fence.
As soon as you bust that fence with your phone, and of course you got to have your location turned on and other things, but as soon as you bust that fence with your phone and you walk out the door, I'm going to hammer
Serve
you for the
you
next
ads.
30 days
Yeah.
with the ads
With
for
the other guys'
Yeah.
ad.
the first
Right.
store's ads. And then I'm able to generate reporting that will show how many times,
Right.
how many of those people that I hit with the ads walked through the
Right.
store.
So
We do
you
it a
can,
lot
you can
for-
geofence both. So you can geofence your competitor. Once they leave that, you serve them ads, and then you can geofence yourself to know when that person then walks into your store. Yeah. Right?
Well, it's called device ID.
Okay.
So within the network, your device has an ID.
Yeah.
It looks like IED:040.
Right.
It doesn't look like your phone number. So that device is tracked by the network everywhere it goes. So when you leave Rooms to Go and walk into Farmers,
Yeah.
if Farmers was paying for the ad, I can tell the guys at Farmers that, well, they were in Rooms to Go on Thursday
They're here today.
and they walked into your store on Saturday.
Yeah.
And then
And for those people that are going to freak out about this, they don't know your name.
no, we
It just
don't-
knows your device,
It
right?
doesn't know your name. Good point. It doesn't know your name. Doesn't know any of your
Doesn't know who you
information,
are.
Doesn't even know your phone number.
Yeah.
So we're not able to give the guys that and I'm making this up. Farmers Rooms to Go. Neither one are advertisers. So we're not able to give the guys at Farmers your name
Right.
or your phone number.
You just know that a customer that was here
We
is
know that
now
a customer
there.
that walked in there was delivered 400 ads in the last 5 days, and then eventually walked into your
Yeah.
store.
Yeah, we invested in a software program, and so after the third pitch, there was like, "So, Jared, what do you think?" I said, "Well, I think I'm going to walk out of this room and throw my iPhone in the garbage can, cut up my debit card."
Yeah.
Like, this
Yeah.
is ridiculous.
Yeah.
So
It is a little creepy.
Yeah.
I mean, it would show you anything. So if you were from Alaska and you came to Walhalla, I can tell you how you drove here,
Yeah.
where you stayed, what you spent your money on, if you mountain biked, if you went to Issaquena, if you ate in Seneca versus Walhalla, and it all works off of a little bit different than your phone ID. So they're capturing your spending through your transactions on your debit card.
Right.
And they're capturing the data, not necessarily through the iPhone specifically, but through the apps that you have open in your phone.
Yeah.
9 times out of 10, like my wife is the worst. I'll just grab her phone and just start going boom, 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 boom. Swiping up because she's got so many open apps. So everybody's tracking this. So this
company, kills your battery too.
This particular company has 250,000 or million apps that they use to grab information. So if your weather app is open, I'm grabbing all of your information just because you got your weather app open.
Yeah.
9 times out of 10, people leaves their Facebook or Snapchat or whatever open because they're just like, oh, I'm done with that, and they just turn their phone off but never close the app out.
Right.
I'm telling you, everywhere you drove, what you spent. What we can't track, though, is sex, race, age.
Unless you volunteer that stuff.
But they don't even know, we don't even know that we're being tracked.
Yeah. Well, this is not really new.
It's not.
It's kind of come to the forefront with social media, but I mean, in the financial industry, there's what they call KYC. Mm-hmm. Every company within the financial industry has to have KYC, which is know your customer, for legal reasons.
Sure.
So you can't embezzle money and whatever. And so they know you can't go sign up for a bank account or credit card or whatever without verifying who you are.
Right.
Like you can't just be an anonymous person that has a card or a bank account.
Right. It would take a little more work to get into that, I guess. But for our intents and purpose of the investment was just to have the data.
Yeah.
So I call it a snapshot of data because that's what it truly is, because they only have 250,000 apps that they're capturing data from. There's probably, 4 million available apps out there.
Right.
Well, we're in a data-driven world right now.
That's right.
The guys who invented, but created Dollar Shave Club.
Yeah.
They sold it for over $1 billion to the Unilever brand.
Who makes like Gillette and all those. Right. Yeah.
So Unilever said after they said, no, we're throwing the razors in the trash. They were crap.
Yeah. We just wanted the data.
We wanted their data.
Yeah.
We wanted their subscriber list. That's all we want.
Yeah.
They didn't give a crap about
You actually see that a lot.
The razors.
You see it a lot. I know a guy that invented a social media app, and CNN ended up buying it. And as soon as they bought it, the app disappeared. They took the team and the data back to Atlanta. This was they were housed in New York at the time. Mm-hmm. Took the team of however many employees, all the data they'd accrued, building this app and launching it, threw the app in the trash and put all these people in, and never again you've ever heard what happened.
I know.
Are you old enough to remember MySpace?
Oh yeah.
Me and Tom, we were tight.
Yeah.
I was on an airplane in St. Louis. We talked about this the other day. I was in, which was my home airport at that time. And so we're sitting there and we're just taxiing down the runway. And I like to talk to people on airplanes. I know a lot of people hate that shit. Like they can't stand it. Terrible. I'm that guy. Hey, where you from? Where you headed?
Yep.
And so I asked this kid. I said, so, busy week this week? Where you headed? Well, I'm on my way to a deposition.
My first one.
You look like 10. Well, I'm in college. I'm a freshman in college, but it's my first deposition. I think he was flying to Atlanta or wherever. And I was like, I've just got to ask. I'm very curious. Why are you in a deposition at 20 or 19? And he said, well, I started this company called SouthButt. I was like, oh, that's cool. What is SouthButt? He's like, well, everybody in my school was wearing North Face at the time, so I just took the opposite of the two words. So North became South and Face became Butt, and I created an apparel company called SouthButt. I said, so what's the deposition? He's like, well, they sued me up and down sideways. And so he said,
North Face was sued.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he said, but I think from understanding to my lawyers that after the deposition, we're getting an offer, and North Face is going to buy my company.
Just to dissolve it.
Just to shut it down.
Yeah.
Because North Face, what they realized, I think, and I'd have to do some research on this. I need to go dig
See
back
if you
in
find
because
it.
this has been.
Hey, if anybody listening knows anything about this, hit us up.
Hit us up on the email. But this has been probably 10 years ago. And but he said, according to my attorneys, I think they're going to make us an offer just to dissolve it and make it go away. But from what I understand, it's a very lucrative deal.
Yeah.
You ever heard of the Tucker automobile?
Oh yeah.
Ford and Chevrolet and GM, they all got together and did the same thing. Tucker made an automobile that I guess back in the 40s or 50s, I don't know what exactly.
Was more advanced than.
It was just way more advanced than theirs, where the headlights actually turned.
Yeah.
So when you turn the steering wheel, the headlight turned.
Yeah.
They made a movie about him.
Yeah, there was.
Yeah.
There was a good movie about it, but they all bought it and just shut it down. So
Just
Just
threw it
to
all in
shut it
trash.
down.
Yep.
we're not ready for this.
So back to the geofencing and the following and whatever. I think there's two sides to that, because some people are freaked out about it and hate it. I actually like it because it makes everything relevant to me. If I'm gonna see ads,
It makes your advertising relevant.
if I'm gonna see ads, at least I see ads that I enjoy. Cabela's, car stuff, whatever. Like, I'm not getting some random shampoo at, whatever. So I actually am okay with it. I think a lot of people are probably on the other side of that coin, where they're like, I just don't like the idea that,
My
they're
freedom's
tracking
gone.
you. Yeah.
Yeah.
But they don't know who you are. They just know that this device went here, went there, likes this, looks at that. They have no idea who you actually are.
That's right. We're not talking about the voice activated. How many times we had a conversation and see an ad pop up on our phone? Everybody listening, that has happened.
Yeah,
to
yeah.
them.
Every single one of us. But they tell us they're not listening.
No, it's
crap.
it's got to be listening, because it has to be able to hear that Alexa
That's
or that Siri or
That's
that.
right. Ring is a great company, right? So Amazon bought Ring.
Yep.
Right. So we got a camera in 1.8 billion homes or whatever that is. They also own MGM Grand.
Did you know they went on Shark Tank, by the way?
Ring
Yep.
did
Yep.
The Ring guys?
really, and they got turned down.
They got turned down. Actually, no, I'm sorry. They got an offer, but they turned the offer down.
Gotcha.
They didn't like the offer, and they left. And then Richard Branson from Virgin
Seen it.
saw it and gave them everything they wanted.
So Amazon bought either all or a good portion of MGM Grand, who is now releasing a television show on another platform that Amazon owns called the Ring Stories, and they're taking everybody's
That's like Confessions of a
bloopers.
Taxi Cab Driver
Yeah.
or something. Yeah.
everybody's bloopers. Now, Amazon owns the Ring, they own the network, and then Amazon is either in the process or already picked up the Roomba vacuum cleaner.
Yeah.
So not only have I figured out I can see everything on the outside of your home, I also own a product that can map out your entire household.
Yeah.
So now wouldn't it be easier to have the Amazon driver already come up with the Ring camera, Face ID approved, walk into your home, know where the kitchen is, because now you have a layout of your
stuff
home.
up.
It's like people are worried about Facebook. I'm
put
kind of
your-
worried about old Jeff Bezos. Out
Well,
If
one
you can
thing
just
that's
make my Roomba work, I'll be happy.
well, there you go with that too. One of the things that's possible that they haven't done yet, and I don't know why they haven't done it, but like checkouts in a grocery store is obsolete. Like, you wouldn't have to do that. They could basically put those RFID code in every item. When you put it in the cart, it would tell you, you can have a live register on your cart.
Well, you can actually do a little bit of that at Sam's right now.
Yeah, they're bringing it. I think
With
Amazon actually has a full
Yeah,
personless.
in the Amazon store.
Yeah.
So Sam's has it too. When you go in, you can just scan the item with your phone.
Oh, that's right.
Sam's
Yeah,
app. You can just hit it.
But what I'm saying is, like, it rings it up in your cart, and then you just walk out the door with the cart, and when you walk out the door, it checks you out. Like, that's possible, right?
Like, that's right.
And then the other thing is, they can make a refrigerator with the same coating. You put all that stuff up, the refrigerator is going to know what's in there. And as soon as you use an item and throw it out,
Well, we have refrigerators today that you
is
can get
reordered.
on your phone while you're at the grocery store and look and view your shelves to see if you have
Yeah.
eggs or bacon
Yeah.
or whatever.
We almost bought that, but it wasn't available. So
Yeah.
That was 6 months away.
You can either be afraid of technology or you can embrace it. We're not going backwards in time.
Yeah, no, it's
we're
not.
only moving forward.
So speaking of that, let's get back to the paper.
Yeah, backwards.
backwards in time. All right, fair enough.
How much lifespan does the physical newspaper have left in the industry as we know it today? I'm not talking about, you'll always have a digital platform that the Edwards Group, I assume, or the Journal will use, but how long before printing presses are obsolete?
It's anybody's guess. I am hopeful that that's good for another 10 to 20 years. But I will say this: when I got into this back in the early 2000s, they told me we'd be done by 2005.
Yeah.
And then in 2005, they said, well, we missed that window. We'll be done by 2010.
Yeah.
And then they said, well, maybe
chugging.
we can make it to 2015. And I'm happy to say that 2021 was the best year this company's ever had, and 2022 is 18% ahead of it.
So you know what I see happening too? I see kind of like what happened with vinyl. Like, it went away,
It's retro.
but then people started they want
repressing.
that.
Yeah.
I see that happen with paper. I think that at whatever point it does maybe slack off a lot and be like almost the demise of a printed paper, I think it'll come back with this vintage wave of, nah, man, I want it in print.
Well, it's already happening to a certain extent. What you will find, and this we may be just jumping off into the deep end now into that, what I said we could talk about later, but what you'll find is in the 90s and the early 2000s, maybe even back as far as the 80s, when newspapers, especially owning a larger one like Atlanta Journal or somewhere like that, that was akin to owning a printing press, no pun intended, but of money.
Right.
That's right.
Yeah, every time
They
it printed $1.
$40,
$40.
45, 50%
Yeah.
operating margins. Atlanta Journal's running 7, 8, 9, 10 million a month.
Yeah.
There was, in fact, the company that I worked for when I started, Daytona Beach News Journal, was owned, I think, 49% by the Cox family, which also owned the Atlanta Journal. They got into a spat about the time I left, 2003 or 4, and they each wanted the other one to buy them out. And that newspaper in 2004 was evaluated at $349 million.
Wow.
That's strong.
Yeah.
I mean, the Cox family, Miss Cox is the wealthiest person in the state of Georgia, and that includes Arthur Blank, who's worth tens of billions of dollars. She's still the strongest person in the state of Georgia. So what happened was larger companies, Gannett, McClatchy, others, hedge funds got behind them. They saw these huge operating margins, and the Alabama Teacher Retirement Union, whatever it's called, they jumped in and they formed a company called CNHI, Community Newspaper Holdings Incorporated. They
Started buying them up.
They bought 230 newspapers
Yeah.
within 18 months. There's a company doing that right now. McClatchy bought 90 to 110 newspapers. They didn't know how to run them.
Yeah. We see Amazon did
And-
that too. Didn't they buy something?
Jeff paid $250 million for the Washington Post. But that's a different experiment that he's doing.
Oh, yeah.
and
I'm sure.
He's winning with it. He wanted to see if he could deliver with it in a metro area.
Right.
Jeff Bezos is probably going to be the rebirth of major newspapers in metro areas.
He's just going to show the way it needs to be done.
No, he's going to use the Washington Post to deliver his stuff for Amazon overnight.
Oh, I got you.
It's a logistics play.
Yeah.
It's a logistics play.
Yeah, one they own.
Nice.
You get your newspaper, your coffee pods, and your donuts and your trash bags
All in the same
all
morning.
in a box in the
Yeah.
same morning in a metro.
That's interesting.
Sweet.
Go ahead and mark that down, whatever date this is.
Yeah.
People are listening to it that I said that because it's going to happen. But all these players got involved, and now they've promised these huge margins back to their hedge funds. And they're talking 30, 40, 50% margins. And business changed. Business changed in the late 90s. Business changed in the early 2000s. Then we had a recession in 08, and these margins weren't being hit. Mm-hmm. Publishers who were making $250,000 a year in Athens and Charlotte or wherever, they're starting being laid off.
Right.
Well, now they're bringing in people who weren't career newspaper guys. They didn't know how to run a news. They certainly didn't know how to run one through a downtime.
Right.
And then this just starts this snowball effect. And now you've got these huge companies. Gannett's the largest newspaper company that's ever existed in the world.
And
Probably will be completely bankrupt by the end of next year, if not this year.
Where are they located? Their home base?
I don't know anymore. They've sold it so many times. It used to be Florida. Gannett was started out of Florida Today. They started great newspaper company, great newspaper operator. He owned Florida Today and some others down that way. And he locked some guys in a room and said, I want a national newspaper. And that's how USA Today was born.
Gotcha.
He became gigantic. And then all the investors started
Right.
locking to their doors. So now you're seeing a return to more localized ownership. We're still in a place where we want to own 10, 15, 20 newspapers.
Yeah.
Right? 30 newspapers, whatever. We don't want to own 250. We can't run them. 10 to 20, we can homogenize some of the efficiencies, shared services accounting, shared services editorial,
Right.
print in the same
That's the
locations.
same.
It's not profitable to have one.
Well, it's the
Right.
same. It's the same
difficult.
argument.
Yeah, it's
It's the
difficult.
same argument for a fourplex versus an apartment complex.
Or
Correct.
or
Right.
just single unit. That's
Yeah,
right.
if you got a fourplex, you don't have a maintenance man on staff there all the time.
That's right.
You don't have a manager running that. I mean, it's inefficient.
Think
You'd,
big.
you'd be better to buy 40 units versus 4
Yeah.
for that exact reason.
So I got an idea of what the revenue can be with one of these papers, but all your revenue is based on local advertising or advertising period, correct? Or is it? Am I subscription based?
Subscriptions
is part
still
of it.
account for 20 to 25% of the overall revenue.
So advertising is the greater 80.
Sure.
Hey, speaking of advertising, let's take a break.
Let's take a break. We'll be right back with Hal Welch. We're back. We're back today with Hal Welch from the Edwards Group, locally known as Seneca Journal and other media here. Hal, one of the things we talked about before the break was the percentage of advertising to subscription base.
Right.
And so it doesn't appear, it is relevant to say that without advertisers, without your customers, not subscription customers, without the advertising, there is no paper.
Well, that would certainly change the model.
It would have to.
It would
We go
change
all
it.
digital and one
It
guy puts it on the internet.
It would change it drastically. It would be a blog.
Yeah,
It would be a blog. But no, it's 70 or 80% advertising driven. It always has been in the U.S. I was mentioning when we were off air a little bit ago that the model in Europe is quite different. It's 40, 50% advertising, and it's maybe as much as 60-40, but
So 60% on the subscription side.
yeah, it's
So
known
they-
over there as a European model. They actually the subscribers pay a much higher rate.
Rate, okay.
Than they do in the U.S. We're a little spoiled in that way. The mail is toted by advertising.
Sure. So when we talk about competitors, since there's not another large printing press or printing group, we'll just use Oconee County because that's where we're located.
Right.
Since there's not another newspaper in Oconee County, there's not, correct?
Not anymore.
Right. Who is competition for you guys? Is radio competition for you guys? Is social media, Facebook, Twitter?
Or are you on your own little island? 'Cause, I mean, I guess that's possible too, right?
I love the question because the answer, let me say, I love the question, but the answer is going to probably sound a little arrogant. There's not a real competitor.
Yeah.
And I think if Brandon from the radio stations were sitting here, he'd say the same thing.
No, we love Brandon. So.
Yeah, sure. And we don't compete. He throws us leads every now and then. We throw him leads.
Yeah.
We advertise on their radio stations. They advertise on our paper. We don't really compete
I mean, it's apples and oranges, right? It's
to a large extent. I think one of the biggest mistakes that a lot of business owners make, and this applies whether you own a hardware store or a car dealership or a flower shop or whatever, you're too caught up oftentimes in what the future of radio or newspaper is.
And don't think about your actual current subscriber base.
Yes.
Or your listener base.
there's
for
still
radio.
there's still people to be had.
I think Brandon, if he were sitting here, would be sitting on the other side of the table nodding his head. Any form of advertising, doesn't matter what you're doing, whether it's on Facebook or Instagram or newspapers or radio stations, television stations, billboards, whatever, you're paying to access
those folks.
the audience that I have spent time and money cultivating.
Yeah. And the ones that read may not be on social media, and the ones that are on social media may not read, and radio, and like everybody has their own little niche of folks that.
Yeah, everybody. George Washington said, "Don't believe everything you read on the internet."
Right. Maybe an Abraham Lincoln, I think.
So, what is the vetting process for the newspaper? Like, can we believe everything that's in the paper, or is it does it go back to the credibility of the source? Like, when a story comes out, and it's a front page story, or not, a story comes out, what is the reporter's responsibility to source that?
100%.
Like, you have to know the guy that the words were spoken out of.
Yeah. So, I mean, it goes through several different levels. So a reporter will go through a meeting or use a source or sit down with one of you guys and then go through that process. And then when it goes to the editor, if the editor comes up with a question or
Some
sees a
red flags or something in there.
sees a statement in there and goes, oh man, are you sure? And then we've got one right now that I can elaborate, but we sent it to the attorney today to say, all right, is this one straight? Right. So because we're out here on the line, and if this one breaks in the next week or so, you'll say, hey, that's that story you were talking about.
Yeah.
It's a big deal. If
the lawsuit, like we said earlier, the lawsuit comes to you guys at that point. It doesn't come to a guy who makes a Twitter post.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So all of the liability is ours in printing the truth. So when you say how much of what's printed in the paper can I believe, my answer is, well, you better damn well be able to believe it all.
Oh, yeah. Something's wrong if you can't.
Now, with a caveat, a lot of folks misunderstand there's an opinion page.
Right.
Right. And then there's all the rest of it. And the opinion page is generally, at least in our paper, it's always withheld to 1 or 2 pages at most. It's always on page 4.
The opinion page is not Willie, right?
No, that's
before
that's
this podcast is up. We're gonna find out
who Willie is.
That's fair enough.
Stay tuned. We should have
started with that.
Yeah, probably. It would have taken you the whole hour. But
So the opinion page is exactly how it's titled. It is the opinion of the editor or the media group that this is how we take this particular subject or opinion is on.
Right.
Is that correct?
That's our opinion. And it's labeled as such, and oftentimes it's someone else. Oftentimes we have a guest view from Charleston, Post and Courier, and Greenville, or whatever it may be. But when it is labeled our view, in all of our markets, then that's our editorial board's opinion on that particular subject.
Got it.
And it is not to be mistaken with a factual reporting of it. So you may have a story that we've done 4 different times, and then finally, on the 4th day, we have a very strong opinion on where that story, what it really meant.
I would think that the opinion is based on fact, but you don't have enough to say that this is a fact. Am I wrong about that?
It's an opinion.
Well,
right, but I mean, it's based on
something because there wouldn't be no opinion if there wasn't a subject.
Right, yeah, that makes sense.
It's a very educated opinion. And one thing that I'll say, and again, I really hate for anything to come out sounding arrogant, but generally when we're challenged about our opinions, I'm challenged by someone who's been paying attention to this for a year or so. It may be the greenway that's being done here. It may be a tax increase. It may be reassessment, whatever the case may be. But this person is very adamant, and they've paid attention to this for a year.
Right.
Been doing this for 22 years. Mm-hmm. I've seen countless numbers of city council members and mayors, and I've seen countless number of county council members and administrators and utility directors at local municipal utilities get hired and get fired and get brought back. And we've seen this repeat itself over and over and over and over and over. And keep in mind, we're also in 12 other markets.
Right.
Not just here. So when we have an opinion, it is educated.
Right.
We're not throwing spaghetti against the wall and seeing.
Yeah. I guess that's where I was going. And that's a great way to put it, is that it's an educated opinion versus what you see a lot of nowadays, especially on social media, I guess only on social media, but it's about the clicks or the views.
Yeah.
Right.
It's the same thing because, correct me if I'm wrong, your job is to sell newspapers, right?
First and foremost.
That's the inner discussion right there.
But you don't want to lose credibility.
No, that's why that was why my question was important. Your stories are 100% fact checked. You got fact checkers of fact checkers.
Which I guess that doesn't mean that you guys don't occasionally do something wrong. But do you guys ever have to recant stuff or?
Oh yeah, sure. Mm-hmm. Gosh, there was one not too long ago. It was with the school district, and we had made a statement. It had to do with one of the meetings. We had made a statement. In fact, it was in an opinion, but we had made the statement in the opinion, and got an email a couple of days later, and he said, "Hey, that statement was not accurate."
Yeah.
So we go back and correct it.
Yeah. Which you listen.
And we're not talking just about this market. This happens in all your markets, right?
Of course.
Yeah. And other papers go through the same stuff. It's not a highlight of Oconee here, but I do remember when I decided for whatever reason to run for county council.
Because you wanted the experience?
No, not at all. I just needed some doors to open, and they did.
Yeah. That's the experience.
Yeah. So I didn't know Hal at that time, didn't know Jerry, didn't know anybody at the paper. But I do remember that the paper came out,
Yeah.
And it said something to
Was it an opinion piece or was it a?
No, it was when you put all the candidates. Yeah, I guess it was an opinion piece because he put all the candidates on a page, and we like this about this candidate.
Oh, it's just the endorsements.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know what you call it. It's been. This was 2000.
Yeah.
Whatever.
It's been
a long time.
Yeah.
2 elections since.
Yep.
So it said, although we appreciate Mr. Ketterman's drive and audacity, we just feel like the other candidate's got to be better, but we hope he runs again. And I'm like, yeah.
Thanks.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.
And I mean,
it is what it is.
It is what it is, which was fine. But it's funny because I looked at an opportunity in Mississippi and I called Hal and I was like, I really need you to fly out to Mississippi and meet me for this meeting. I was like, okay. And so what we learned in Mississippi was the influence of a large media group.
Yeah.
Because if you own most of that market, that's kind of a big deal.
Yeah. Well, it's a big responsibility.
You do control the narrative.
Yeah, it's a big responsibility.
Yeah. So the whole concept of media itself really, not like music, but the news and that kind of group is it always has intrigued me. We need to explore the WGOG conversation.
See, I think what would happen though.
See, me and Brandon are friends. Y'all gonna maybe have.
I love Brandon, man.
Yeah, we're not saying anything about it. I think we say WGOG, but it would be any station. It wouldn't have to be them necessarily.
Small.
Yeah, I think
just a small syndicate station.
Yeah, I think we have this fantasy of
radio's great. Radio's great, and owning radio is good.
Play Jared Ketterman music all day, like
nonstop.
Just put it on Spotify so you can get the nickel a shot.
So you're also in the radio, and we're talking mostly about print. Tell us about your radio market. How is that set up? We talk about subscription base for newspapers and 80% of advertising. It's 80-20 rule for print. There's no subscription to FM or AM.
Not at all.
So you're strictly based on advertising dollars at that point, correct?
100%.
100%.
100%. The cool thing with radio is it's got its own pluses and minuses, and there's a lot of new technologies that have come into place in the last 10, 15 years too. But one of the better things about owning radio versus a newspaper is your expenses are so much more controlled. So, no matter what contracts you have in place, so if you've got live on-air talent, you know what that's going to cost you. If they call it on the bird, if you're on the bird, on the satellite, you know what that's going to cost you. Your power bills are within reason, always about the same. Your water bills and your engineering bills and all those things are
real estate stays the same.
They're all dynamically fixed.
It's just fixed cost.
So you have a target. And if your radio station costs you $20,000 a month or $40,000 a month or $100,000 a month, you know exactly where you've got to go to be profitable.
You have the ads you got to sell.
Now, the downside to that is in a newspaper when we constrict. So during the pandemic, I cut pages. I cut color pages.
Yeah.
I cut free copies. I quit doing that. I cut the number. So we might put 200 newspapers at Publix and only sell 100 of them, and we take 100 back and we throw them in the recycle bin, and we get a check for that. But I put 75 papers at Publix. I can cut cost at a newspaper if I start to see a constriction coming. I can't cut costs at a radio station.
Oh yeah, you're stuck with it.
You got to sell your way out of it.
Yeah.
That's the only way. That's the only way to make money.
Yeah,
at a radio
in a
station.
tight market too, nobody wants to. I mean, it's hard to advertise for your brewery when nothing's open.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
so difficult. You're in both. You're in print. You're in radio. I don't want to ask this question, but I don't know any way to
leave it to Jared.
Other way to word it. Which dies first?
Radio.
Yeah. Maybe we talking about in its traditional form.
That's correct.
Right?
I'm not talking about music dying at FM and AM. And
it feels less of a need.
Well, I also see a lot of big players getting that game. Right?
Yeah.
So you see like YouTube music. Like when YouTube gets in the music industry and they're just streaming it for free, like it's hard to compete against that, right? I mean, they've got the money. So it's not like they're trying to make revenue. on it.
And again, I mean, I say it from a position of someone who's running both. I just think that newspapers offer something that in Seneca, South Carolina, and in thousands of communities just like it around the country is not going to be replaced by someone coming along with YouTube or Spotify or whatever.
That's right.
The radio stations they're already being replaced.
Yeah.
And it stinks. It's difficult for us. It's difficult for our friends at GOG and whatnot. Is Spotify going to broadcast a local Walhalla football game Friday night?
No.
They're not going to do that.
You're right.
So as that dies away, that sucks.
Yeah.
But what's going to happen is the local newspaper, and we're already exploring this in all of our newspapers, we're going to video broadcast the local high school sports.
Yeah.
Basketball, football.
From the print side or from the radio side?
On our websites.
Interesting.
Yeah. The other thing it could happen too is it may not go away. It just might change.
Let's talk about that comment you just said about YouTube and music, because YouTube's free. Does that mean Netflix goes away because I can stream pretty much everything else on YouTube? Because that's a paid subscription and YouTube is free.
Well, there's a difference though, because YouTube is creating content like Netflix is, but they charge for that.
Yeah, there's a difference in quality of content.
Yeah, so YouTube is in that game as well.
But I can stream your YouTube channel on my TV now through YouTube.
It's not free. You got to give your attention.
I've got to
for ads.
Okay, well, yeah, for you,
it's not free for you.
Right.
You got to pay in attention. Now you can pay for no ads, but now you're paying money.
That's right. I mean, we pay for our attention by having a 40-hour-a-week job.
See, sometimes you end up walking right back into the same door.
Yeah.
And you don't even realize you did.
No doubt.
But you walk right back into the same door. And the comment you made earlier that I meant to touch on then, and or at least I got distracted. One of the things I think is a disadvantage through targeted advertising, which occurs in all these other places, Facebook, Instagram, and whatnot. One of the reasons for advertising,
it's for organic reach.
one of the core reasons for it is to introduce you to something that you wouldn't have already known about.
Right.
Introduce you to the new shoe, the new belt. I'm wearing this click belt.
You would have never known if it was
I would have
targeted.
never known it if I'd have been targeted by looking when I was searching for a genuine leather belt. Mm-hmm. But I got hit organically with a ad for this click belt, and I bought it. And I bought 4 of them. They're awesome.
Yeah, but you can't tell if you're gaining weight or not because you're clicking.
I don't want to know.
Yeah, I don't want to.
Yeah.
So
I don't know.
That's a good point, because I actually had something I wanted to address on the same comment, and that's brand awareness. I think a lot of people feel like there has to be an exchange for, okay, I'm paying this for the ad, I got to see this much revenue walk in the door. But that's not always what you want. Sometimes brand awareness is the thing, right? Sometimes you just pay for it and you don't see the ROI right now. Mm-hmm. But if you're in their face enough, guess what? They're going to know you're around.
We talked about that with Grant Cardone, spending $1 million a month
he's not
on brand awareness.
But everybody knows Grant Cardone now.
Yeah.
And they may not be giving him money, but he has the brand.
But they're grabbing his content.
I did. But, one of the points I would even like, so when you're on all these online platforms and you're advertising all these multiple places, and I'll bring this back down locally as best I can, brand awareness versus ROI advertising. I've got 5 sales reps in our building and an advertising director whose job it is to know the difference in all this stuff, right?
Yeah.
We tell them all the time when we hire new folks and we put them through training is just because they were a good cook doesn't mean they can run a restaurant. Just because they were a good plumber doesn't mean they can run a business. Your job is to help this guy run his marketing side, at least, of his business, and to have enough
Be a resource. Yeah, be a resource for them.
Be a resource for. They're called on by 20, 30, 40 people a week. There's no telling how many people are coming in and asking them for $1. You need to earn that dollar. And one of the ways you do is by educating your advertiser of the difference between, we call it top of mind, you're calling it brand awareness.
Right.
But top of mind advertising versus, well, I'm going to run a sale this weekend because I need to clear out half of this inventory. Those are 2 different ads.
It's 2 totally different.
And it's 2 different sets of expectations. Does Facebook ask you what those expectations are? And do they care on Monday morning when they didn't meet them?
Yeah.
But it's so
The guys in my
cheap.
office.
Yeah.
But think of it this way. We're less than a penny a household if you run a quarter-page ad in color.
Wow.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Eight tenths of a
Because
cent.
And we've talked about this.
we
because-
say it's so cheap, but under that, how many subscribers you got?
12,000.
I mean, yeah. That's relevant.
Yeah.
It's 8/10 of a cent for
That's
a quarter-page
insane.
ad in color. Now, if we were having this conversation, and you mentioned, the store you opened up front, I wouldn't let you advertise what's above it in the journal. That would be pointless.
Yeah.
But I would put it
The
in
Airbnbs is what you're speaking of. Yeah.
I would put it in my visitor's guide that gets mailed all over the southeastern United States.
Yeah.
But I would put your store, the clothing store, in the journal.
Yeah.
Gosh, nobody's ever hit me up to see if Lofts Over Maine,
Let's see.
loftsovermaine.com wants to even advertise in a visitor's guide. But we're always kind of, we've got a presence already because there's always a picture there.
Yeah, there's always
But that's the advertising. That's the level of service that you get when you're dealing with Brandon at the station, when you're dealing with Larry and our guys at the Journal. Mm-hmm. They come back on Monday and they said, was this good for you?
Yeah.
Did this work? Do we need to change the approach? Did this meet your expectations?
Yeah, I mean, this conversation has definitely opened my mind to, not that I was against radio and paper, but that, you know what, you're not going to reach everybody, even though you think you can target and it's great. You can't target everybody because not everybody's there.
Yeah, that's right.
Right?
That's right.
Well, but you also are playing with the algorithm, and we get to see this in our own reporting.
You don't even know what
So-
they are putting out.
If you come to us and you want to geofence or market or whatever, geo-target or programmatic, when we first load you into the system, you bubble to the top. When somebody Googles for a loft, you're at the top. Month 2, you're about 4 notches down.
Yeah.
Month 3, you're 6 notches down. Month 8, you're
It's
down
kind
at
of
the
like
bottom.
it's kind of like the iPhone. The battery just never seems to last as long
It's
as the
planned
older it gets.
obsolescence.
Yeah, it's exactly what I was
now,
getting. Yeah.
now we need you to pump a few more dollars in to
right.
crawl back up to the top of the thing. That doesn't happen on the radio station. That doesn't happen in the newspaper.
Yeah.
You get to call me on Monday
Good
and
call.
say, hey,
Good call, because that is so.
why was my ad next to her ad when we're competitors? And trust me, that happens just about every Monday. Yeah. So, especially between the realtors, I won't name anybody, but if any of them are listening.
That's when you just tell them, say, hey, this makes it easy. All I have to do is pick between the two.
Or buy both.
Or yeah, there you go.
Or
just
buy
buy,
them
just buy
all.
both pages and we'll cut
Buy
that.
them all, and you'll be the only
right.
one. That's awesome. That's insane. I really think about it's less than a cent per household. That's
You're buying the audience. So many people are caught up in where newspapers are going to be 10, 15 years from now, and we're not.
Don't worry
we're not
about
even,
it.
That's my problem.
Yeah.
That's not your problem. That's my
right.
problem.
That's right.
And I'm the one trying to figure that out. And so far we've done a great job of remaining relevant. We're as strong as we've ever been in all of the counties that we're in. We've even the paper we bought in Wyoming was we bought it for a song because it was in trouble.
Yeah.
And we've already this year it's probably going to
Turn
be
it
the
around.
largest profit center we've got in the
So,
company.
what kind of deal do we get on an ad in the paper?
why do we need an ad in the paper?
But we want you. Can we pay you to write an opinion piece? How does that work?
It doesn't.
But it's an ad. But
No,
just
but
write it.
we'll write Willie, whoever Willie is. I think we'll get into that in a minute. Let me go totally out of the box here real quick.
Okay.
If radio dies
In its current form.
in its current,
Gotta be clear,
in its
because it
current
ain't-
form, that's
yeah.
correct. We're not talking music.
They'll always
dies.
say music in your ears.
That's right. If radio dies in its current form, what do we do with FM and AM? What will the frequencies be
Used for.
What's the possibilities there?
Oh, it's already happening. See, the entire FM spectrum is between Channel 6 and Channel 7 on the old UHF, VHF dial,
Yeah.
whatever it was. All that occurs between Channel 6 and 7. All of that bandwidth, the reason they're moving you from 3G to 4G, 4G to 5G, they're trying to make bandwidth room because we anticipate that all of the data will essentially be wireless, and it's all FM
Oh, sure.
signaling.
Yeah.
So it's not going to upset anybody at the FCC the more FM bandwidth gets cleared to start to
data.
So explain this to me, and we keep not to keep picking on WGOG, right? But if they own what 96.3?
One of 1.7.
Oh, no, it used to be 96.3.
It did for a long time.
So do they own 101.7? They own
in
that
a
frequency?
given geographic territory,
Gotcha.
right? So
locally.
Oh, well, they don't own it in Milwaukee.
right. So
Gotcha.
if you're ever traveling and you're in an area where all of a sudden you're catching two radio signals, you're right on the edge of both of those signals. They're beaming into one another.
Right.
Gotcha.
And so you may get GOG, and then you may catch the other station, then GOG comes back in. Then,
Understood.
so you're right on the edge of that. So it depends on your licensing. It depends on your wattage. It depends on even population is what you'll get approved for. But it's generally a big circle. Now, if you're on a mountain like they are, or like we are up in Wyoming, it's more looks like a kind of a pizza pie.
Yeah.
So one of the things I thought was cool though that they've started doing, I don't know if like small radio stations can do this, but I know like iHeart, which I'm sure is a huge conglomerate.
We have listeners on iHeart.
We do have listeners on iHeart.
Appreciate y'all.
But you can basically listen to a station on iHeart, say it's, WGOG, if they could have that. I don't know if they have that ability or not, but if they did, and then you could listen to them across the whole country because it's not necessarily radio bandwidth. It's more of streaming.
It's streaming.
Yeah.
It's straight streaming.
Well, it's the internet piece.
Right.
It's straight streaming. We stream all of our stations. All of our stations have an app, and we haven't put them on iHeartRadio. Now, I may be wrong. So if someone out there is listening, please don't email the guys and say this guy's an idiot.
Or email us.
We need emails.
SouthCackPod@gmail.com.
Thank you.
But I think iHeartRadio allows radio stations that are not owned by their particular group, because I'm almost positive there are a few stations that I even listen to that are not owned by their parent company.
Right.
That are now streaming on their platform. So I'm sure they're paying royalties and monthly fees and whatnot to do that. But they've opened up. Obviously, I think they're number one podcast entity in the world right now. But they've opened up to other stations that are not just on their own footprint.
I tell you what, they've exploded. Because I mean, like, I don't know how many years ago, but 5 years ago, there was no such thing as iHeart that I knew of. And now it's like every station's a part of it. Their biggest podcast, and they're taking over Spotify.
There was, I don't remember the year, but when I was in doing music, iHeart was a thing.
I
It
just
might have been a
assumed-
startup, but now it's like,
Well, I just assumed that it was like a huge corporation, and then they just made up a name, a public name for that corporation, which I'm assuming that's probably what it is,
I think
right?
you're right.
Yeah.
I would say you're right on that. I'd have to go back and look because it's been years since I did, but I do believe it was a small, kind of like a Cumulus or a Cox Media or something like that, regional hub, and they got in the right place at the right time and they exploded.
sure. Is there for those that don't know, there's no script at this podcast.
Yeah,
At
we're winging it.
any podcast.
If you hadn't figured
I
that
think
out,
anybody listening has figured that out.
So I'm going to ask a question, and if you say no comment, which is pretty relevant in your industry, then you can just say that. But is there an exit strategy for, I'm going to say the Edwards Group for print and radio, or we can expand it. What do you look for in an exit strategy, or what are other media companies looking for in an exit strategy for print and radio?
How about you flip it? You could flip that. If you don't want to answer that, you could flip that and say, hey, when you're looking to buy, what are you looking for?
Well, that's
Both
the
questions
exit
are
strategy.
I think both questions are great questions. As it relates to the Edwards Group, I would be honest and tell you there's no exit strategy. I don't want to reveal too much, but I mean we're a very healthy company. We're a completely debt-free company.
You're looking to grow.
We're an extraordinarily profitable company. I like to brag that we're very well run. We've got a great team of publishers and directors in all of our locations. There's no retreat.
Yeah.
Are you looking to expand?
Yes,
Okay, so are other companies looking at exit strategies?
I'm sure there are.
Yeah.
I'm sure there are.
Yeah.
You know, if you're in one of those positions where, and everything's relative, right? It's relative to, if Gannett had an exit strategy, by God, they'd pull a ripcord tomorrow. I'm speculating. Somebody might know their actual number, but I think their debt payment's $15 million a month. It's
craziness.
It's bone crushing. They're selling real estate. They're selling real estate to remain in the black so they can make payroll.
Right.
Just 3 weeks ago, they cut 200 journalists across the country. That's never going to save you into a profit. They're in a bad situation. So their debt strategy would be different than a small operator like the guys we went and saw a few states over. Yeah. His exit strategy, he's 70 years old, just wants to retire. It's time to retire.
Yeah,
that's what I call the machine shop exit strategy. 90% of the machine shops you see going out of business,
their boy doesn't want to take it over.
The owner is just done. And the kids don't want anything to do with the machine shop because they're not interested.
Yep.
Probably the same thing that you see in your industry.
Yeah. Quite a bit.
That's crazy.
Right on. So what do you guys look for if you guys are going to do like an acquisition? Is it like pure subscriber base? Is it potential? What's your main?
There's really two caveats. And excuse me, which was recently the case, if the property is adjacent to one that we already own, so it's a competitor,
right,
then it gets a little bit more of a look, right? So we don't want another good operator to come into town and buy something because we were lazy and then break it off.
Yeah.
In us. So that one gets a really hard look, and which was the case in Wyoming when we bought the newspaper operation up there. Outside of that, we are different. We're very, very different. What you'll generally see, and what gets these guys into so much trouble, they go from town to town to town, and they see these newspapers. I think I can share this. The Edwards family at one time, they owned half the state of Iowa. I don't know what the number was, 30, 35 newspapers at one time. A large company came in and paid 14 times the cash flow. 15 times. Take the check and leave.
Yeah.
But that
you don't see that number anymore. I can promise you're not seeing 14 times cash flow for a paper today.
But they did that, and
what did Bezos pay?
He paid 5.
I mean,
5 times cash flow.
Was that what it was? 5 times?
Not 14.
Yeah, you're right.
He paid a full 5, but
that's drug money.
That's
way different.
It's going to sound terrible, but we look for a troubled property.
Yeah.
That the market has potential, but the property itself's not being well run.
Right.
It doesn't have resources.
That's what we look for.
It's starved. And what it needs is resources from a corporate outfit that has an accountant, has a CFO,
experience.
has a COO.
Yeah.
Oh, it's Walhalla Main Street.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah, that's what I was saying. That's what we look for. Yeah.
So,
and that's what I was talking about when I said potential or subscriber base.
So if it's completely fixed, if it's running as good as it can, and it's running at 12, 13, 15% margins, and that's something else that blows people's mind. I know it blew Jared's mind when he said, "What kind of margins can you run?" I said, "Well, 15 to 20%." And
yeah,
really? There's a long pause. And he thought I was kidding.
But made sure you heard it right.
Yeah. So if it's running at 15, 20%, and that's the best it can do, I don't necessarily want it for our company because we're going to have to pay top dollar for it. And then the only place for it to go from there is kind of down. So I want to buy something that's struggling, that we can pick up for cash.
That you can grow.
That we can fix the problems that it has and grow it into a good
It's just like real estate.
I mean, it's business 101.
Yeah.
Is what it is.
You know, the thing is, though, technically it is a form of real estate because attention, there's an attention grab. There's a real estate grab. It is kind of its own, I'm not going to say own those eyeballs or those ears, but once you have them, it is valuable to a lot of people, right? It is a real estate play.
I looked at a media company, right? Consulted Hal to help me out, and what intrigued me was how many offices this company had. And I was looking more at the real estate and the locations of each building than I was the subscriber base of whatever the media company was at that time.
You want to keep the buildings and sell the business?
It was a real estate play for sure.
I knew that's how you think.
For sure. But I needed somebody that was in the media world to kind of say, well, I think they're doing this or this. But it was interesting. Learned a lot.
Cool.
This has been good.
We need to know. We got to know.
Are we going to find out who Willie is?
Tell us who Willie is. Really?
Really?
I had no idea.
He just whispered it.
Yeah.
What? Not what I expecting.
It's not who I would have thought.
Hal, what's the name of your boat?
I do want to name it Not Willie. I really do.
Spelled Knot.
Knot. That's right.
Not Willie.
That's awesome.
Listen, we appreciate your time, Mr. Hal Welch, and representing the Edwards Group and locally known as here in Walhalla, the Seneca Journal.
Yeah. How can they reach out to you? You got like social media?
I don't really do a lot of social media, but my email.
But the journal does.
The journal does. I don't pay attention to it, quite honestly.
Seneca Journal? No, it's not. It's Upstate.
It's upstatetoday.com.
Upstatetoday.com.
We are online on Facebook as the Journal, but I don't pay attention to it a lot.
Yeah.
I got to stay out of that world.
I got you.
There was one more question that I had. Would you like to advertise on our podcast?
Oh, or what's our special rate?
Well, I don't want to say that because podcasts last forever. Somebody will be like, "Well, you gave that rate years ago."
No, I'm talking about in the paper. How do we?
Oh, we're 1 cent per household.
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, one of the things he told me, he said, "Hey, listen, when you come on the podcast, I won't put you on the spot and none of that. I won't do any of that." But,
Who's Willie? Will you advertise with us? How much money you making?
good Lord.
Listen, we appreciate the time. As always, you can find upstatetoday.com.
That's it.
And you can subscribe and get your local news here through them.
We always say support local.
Support local. All right, guys, it's been a great podcast. Thanks, listeners. And you can reach out to us at
SouthCackPod@gmail.com.
All right. Y'all enjoy the rest of your weekend.